Breaking news this morning of a 5.1 magnitude earthquake. It hit at 8:07 this morning at the North Carolina-Virginia border in Sparta, North Carolina. We want to bring in meteorologist Amanda Cox going through some of the data this morning. And Amanda, what are we learning about this earthquake that a lot of people felt this morning?
Well, Ann Wyatt, this is the largest earthquake that we've had in North Carolina in the last 104 years. So just to give you a perspective, that's a long time, and that is a very strong earthquake. So there was actually two earthquakes that occurred this morning. We actually had the first one occur at 1:57 this morning. It was 3 miles from Sparta, and it was on the more shallower side, so we didn't feel it a whole lot. But it was a 2.6 magnitude earthquake. The one that everyone's talking about, and the one that we felt, and now is the largest in North Carolina in the last 104 years. That's since 1916. This is the largest. It was a 5.1 magnitude earthquake that occurred at 8:07 this morning. It was 2 miles from Sparta, and it was a 5.1, but it was only 3.1 miles deep. So the depth of it still wasn't even that far down as well. And so because it was closer to the surface, we were able to feel a lot more of those shock waves kind of send out. And we felt them all the way down here in Charlotte. It shook our studio. We actually have gotten reports all the way down into South Carolina, up into Georgia, over into Tennessee as well. So just to give you a perspective, this is the largest in 104 years. We do have quite a few that actually occur on a yearly basis, and a lot of them do occur right along the Appalachian Mountains. This was right along that area, getting very close to part of our area that we keep an eye on is Ashe County. This was right outside of Ashe County, but usually we do have quite a few. 6 this week. So we've actually had, probably didn't notice them, they were probably very minor, but this week alone in North Carolina, we've had 6 earthquakes. We've had 11 in the last 30 days, and in the last 365 days, we've had 85 earthquakes. Now, to also put this in perspective, not only is it the largest in the last 104 years, it's the second largest earthquake on the East Coast since 1944. The only one that was larger than this was up in Virginia, and it was a 5.8 magnitude earthquake. So, with that being said, this is quite a feat that we have seen this morning, and you probably saw it shake your house. You probably felt that, and anywhere. We've seen reports from northern Georgia all the way up into Virginia. I've even seen reports up into West Virginia feeling some of this. I know Ann Wyatt was talking to her family and some friends and some people mentioning out in Tennessee that we've seen some of that as well. Are you getting any other reports in, Ann Wyatt, or anything else that we're seeing out there?
Yeah, Amanda, just before we came here on this Facebook Live, I called the Speedway, one of the gas stations up in Sparta, and the woman on the phone told me that it was very intense. She said part of the ceiling and the roof came down, and that the Food Lion has been closed down as well. As you can imagine, with all of the items on shelves there, they're likely seeing some localized damage close up there to the epicenter. Now, the National Weather Service tells us they really haven't gotten many reports around our area here, but this map that is on your screen in between the two of us here, we have just seen the number of blue dots, these little squares and circles, just grow dramatically within the last hour, because these are indicative of the number of people who were reporting that they felt something this morning.
Yeah, and what you really want to do is not only do you want to report this, but this is also now we know where it was and how much it was, but it's also giving them an idea. So each time one of these occurs, they kind of measure it, they do research. So because these are on the stronger side, and we do have, like I was showing you, earthquakes all the time, they want to keep an eye on this fault line. They want to keep an eye on what's happening in the ground, and they want to keep an eye on if these are going to occur and become a little bit stronger or a little bit, and where those stronger ones are occurring. But you can definitely see we had 2 today, and like I said, we have had quite a few. The other thing, to give you a perspective, the top 10 earthquakes in North Carolina, 8 of them have been along the Appalachian Mountains, but the closest one to this It's a 3.8 magnitude earthquake. So this is a significant feat, and this is what we would classify as more likely being a major earthquake of what we've been seeing. And like I said, we are seeing not only right outside of Sparta, we need to keep an eye on if you are in this area, hopefully you're okay, but if you do have any damage like we were talking about with the Food Lion, as well as some other places around this area, if you did see any damage, and that also getting closer to the mountains, I'm sure because you are so close to this, you can see Jefferson. So this is Ashe County right here. This is part of our area, and all of this probably felt because you were very close to the epicenter. The closer you were to it, the more likely you have that damage, the more likely you felt it even stronger, because places like in northern Georgia, if they felt it, think of what was going on a little bit closer to the north. And Wyatt, what do you got over there?
You know, we're just following really reports from people. Our phones have been ringing off the hook here at this station. Greenville, South Carolina, as far as Myrtle Beach, up in Richmond, Virginia, even Kennesaw, Georgia. Amanda, that's where people are seeing some of this damage. On Facebook, Darlene in Concord said she thought something was on her roof. Susan Bryant in Sevierville, Tennessee, in East Tennessee there in the mountains, said she felt like someone was gently shaking her recliner. It was very evenly rhythmic for about 5 to 6 seconds. And then the light fixture above the table was moving a bit. Brian Field in Matthews tells us he felt it there and thought someone was moving in his apartment complex. We're getting reports of in Rock Hill, Gastonia. Lots of people feeling it. I'll tell you, we were actually on the air when it was happening. There was video up, but the lights here in the studio, they were shaking. The anchor desk here where I'm sitting, it was also shaking as well. And I would imagine that that's what a lot of people felt this morning. Just a brief, 10 to 15 seconds of shaking. I want to see if we can take the USGS website here just to kind of show you. I believe our producer Jesse is looking at that. Okay, so every one of these little dots, as we mentioned earlier, what people felt, and they are asking, the USGS is asking for people to report what they felt, what it was like this morning, because it really helps seismologists study this earthquake and put together what they're feeling, what they saw. Some of the questions on the survey, they're asking if you were inside, were you asleep? Did it wake you up? What did it scare you? We do know that there are some people who slept through this earthquake and didn't really feel that. I believe we have those questions pulled up. I'm looking off screen to the monitor. Oh, and I just lost a microphone there. Did you feel it? Yes or no? And then they're asking you to put in your address so they can kind of map out proximity of where you are in terms of the epicenter of this quake. What was your situation during the earthquake? Were you in a moving vehicle? I actually, years back with my family in California, was in a car during a much smaller earthquake, but we still could feel the car shake ever so slightly, Amanda. But certainly, it almost felt like someone was on the roof of the building here. Is that what it felt like to you, Amanda?
It did. And honestly, because a lot of times we have workers on the top of the building. They're either doing stuff with the air conditioning or whatnot. But I was like, it's Sunday. Why would anybody be up there? And then all of a sudden, I was like, why would it have shook like my seat? Why would it have shaken anything here in the studio? And what people don't know is in studios, we're very soundproof. We have a lot of hard walls where we have bricks and stuff. So for it to shake us that much to where we kind of go, whoa, what was that? And our lights were shaking on the ceiling. This was a really big earthquake. And unfortunately, it's not something that we normally see. We do see a lot of earthquakes. We just don't see them as often. I actually just got a post because I posted about this, and I actually just got someone saying they saw it all the way down into central Georgia as they felt it. And so this has been just a large storm or a large earthquake that is one of the largest that we've had in the last 104 years. But here's the thing, it actually was not the first one that occurred today. And in the last week, we've had 6. But today, we actually started off with a 2.6 magnitude earthquake at 1:57. And to give you an idea of the difference of that, a 2.6, I was up at 1:30 this morning is when I got up. I live in South Charlotte. I didn't feel that one. I didn't feel that one at all, and I didn't even know that that one occurred, but it occurred very close to this, and it probably got things mixed up and moving throughout the morning hours. And then once we kind of saw that, this next earthquake, this was the 5.1. This is the one everybody felt and was like, whoa, what was that? That occurred at 8:07 this morning, 2 miles from Sparta. And like I said, that is the biggest one that we've seen in the last 104 years. The other thing I wanted to show you, because I was telling you this is pretty often that we see these, we actually see them occurring a lot right along the Appalachian Mountains. We do have fault lines here in the North Carolina area, and because of that, we do have a lot of earthquakes that do occur. 6 in the last week. You probably didn't notice them. They probably were very low or way down deep in the earth, so they probably didn't send out a lot of shock waves. You probably didn't notice they were happening because they were probably just maybe a 1, maybe 2, if that. Notice 11 in the last 30 days. We've had 85 in the last 365 days. Also, to give you perspective on how large this was, since it was a 5.1 magnitude earthquake, it's the second largest earthquake to occur in eastern U.S., so along the eastern seaboard, since 1944. This one that was bigger than that was up in Virginia. We probably remember it was just a few years back. It was a 5.8 magnitude, and that is the largest one on the eastern seaboard. Today, our 5.1 is now the second largest one. And so this is definitely kind of an event that we just, you didn't see coming, but it's just, this is not something we typically see. The closest earthquake that we have to this size in North Carolina was a 3.8 magnitude. And Wyatt?
And a lot of people, Amanda, picked up their phones immediately. I mean, this thing hit, what, 8:07?
8:07.
And then by 8:08, Twitter timelines were just going crazy with people saying,
yeah,
was that an earthquake that I just felt? I mean, I believe we can pull up some of those tweets. Dale Earnhardt Jr. saying, I think I just felt an earthquake there. Jonathan Stewart, he also tweeted about it. So there are a lot of people weighing in this morning with what they felt. And Amanda, I'd imagine that Ring cameras may have caught, or even cameras inside people's homes could have captured some pretty, things shaking a little bit in there.
Yeah, I mean, not only did they probably catch something like that, we probably need to go back and look at the footage. A good camera probably to look at is Grandfather Mountain. They're very close to that, even though they weren't right at the epicenter. But if you get back into Avery County, that's where we have Grandfather Mountain, and it's very high up. So if you think that you can feel all of this closer to the ground, think of what was going up on that swinging bridge out at Grandfather Mountain. So that's something that we may want to go back and look at and see definitely if we can see maybe some damage or maybe some of that swaying taking place. Because I know with me, when I was sitting here, you could even just kind of feel that motion kind of going through your body as well. And like I said, this is the largest earthquake that we've had. It's a magnitude 5.1 magnitude. That's not something we typically see. We were talking to Derek Dellinger earlier this morning, and it woke him up from his sleep. He did experience, it was a 4 something down in South Carolina about 4 years ago, and he said this was much more of just kind of hitting it right in home and feeling it. He was seeing his apartment swaying. He lives in downtown Charlotte. And this one, he even said, was much worse than what that 4 point, whatever, it was like a 4.5, I believe is what he was saying. And what's interesting with that is that you wouldn't think it would be that much different, but maybe because of the placement where it's just right on the edge of the mountains, as well as getting down into that lower area, maybe because he was a little bit higher up, who knows? But it definitely was a big event. What do you got over there, Ann Wyatt?
Well, just, Amanda, still, it's not just us here in the Carolinas. People in Virginia, Georgia, Tennessee felt some sort of shaking this morning around 8:07, as we all did. Just to reiterate and to recap for people who are joining us now, this magnitude 5.1 earthquake hit in Sparta, North Carolina. That's right on the Virginia line. And not long ago, I would say maybe 15 minutes ago, I jumped on the phone with the Speedway gas station clerk. You know, they're open 24/7. Yeah. They've always got someone there. She described the earthquake as very intense. It was scary. She said some of the ceiling came down. I would imagine some of that insulation that we see, some of those boards.
Yeah.
And she said they closed the food line down there. And I would have to imagine that it's probably a mess on the aisles there, just when you think of the aisles stacked up with glass jars of whatever you're shopping for, you know, your peanut butter, your jellies, your wine bottles.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll likely have some cleanup, but National Weather Service says no major reports of damage. We're not hearing anything here in the Charlotte area, just to give you an idea yet. And it is, you know, we're going on a little over an hour of this. And at this point, some of those reports would make it back to us at this time, Amanda.
Yeah, they definitely would. And Wyatt, to that perspective where you were talking about maybe the food coming off the shelves, just a little bit ago, I got a text message from my husband down in South Charlotte, and he said it was shaking the house and some of the toys had fallen over. They had either fallen out of the bin a little bit if they were kind of on the side, but it was shaking enough that it did move the toys around a little bit. We didn't have any major issues at our house, but even in South Charlotte, it moved some of the product in our house. So just think of what would have happened up in this area where the potential right at the epicenter could potentially see some of that damage or some of that shifting, or we saw where we could see the potential for maybe even some damage with the ceiling tiles coming down. So it was this has been kind of interesting to see. But originally it started off as a 2.6 magnitude earthquake, and that one occurred earlier this morning, which probably got things kind of moving. And then the biggest one that we've seen today is at 5.1, and this has been the largest in the last 104 years.
And just getting some more information from the National Weather Service, Amanda, about 10 minutes ago, they said that this morning's earthquake near Sparta is the second strongest earthquake to occur in North Carolina since 1900, and the strongest was a 5.2 magnitude earthquake near Skyland, North Carolina in 1916. Just to give you an idea, this is not something that happens here often. A lot of people feeling this shaking this morning here with the earthquake.
Yeah, no, this is not something that we normally see. Like I was telling you, this is the second largest since 1944. The previous one to that was up in Virginia, and that was a 5.8 magnitude. So for the simple fact that it's been even farther than that, 1906, I believe is what you said, was the one that was almost as big as this or just slightly bigger at 5.4. This is not a size earthquake that we see. This is something more likely you would see probably in California. But it's not uncommon. We do have the opportunity for seeing these earthquakes. We have that fault line, especially right along the area where we have going along the Appalachian Mountains. Definitely near Fosco, I know that there's a pretty good fault that runs right along there. But you can see that this is the largest in the last 100 years. And why I say this is not uncommon, the strength of it is uncommon. That 5.1 is uncommon because of the fact that it was so large. But in the last week, we've had 6 earthquakes in the Carolinas, 11 in the last 30 days, 85 in the last 365 days. And like I said, it was the largest that we've seen in eastern North Carolina, second largest in eastern North Carolina. Here's the other thing with that. So this was a 5.1 magnitude at 8:07. The reason you probably felt it so much, and we have a lot of those other ones, and they're usually a little bit deeper in the earth. This one was only 3.1 miles depth into the earth. So it was a shallower one. It was a little bit closer to the surface. It was able to send out those waves and the shock waves from it and continue it, and you were able to feel it. I have places from Georgia all the way into Tennessee, all the way up to West Virginia telling me that they felt this earthquake. And so this is just, it's kind of a historical event, honestly, Ann Wyatt.
It really is something a lot of people will not forget, as if we need to add another thing to 2020. We are going to continue our coverage throughout the day online, and of course Fox 46 News at 6 and 10. We have a crew on the way to Sparta to check out the damage. If you have any video from inside your homes, maybe a Ring camera or a camera inside your house that might have caught something, share that video with us. We would love to see it. Thank you for joining us here on Facebook. And again, feel free to let the USGS know what you felt at your home. Those seismologists are working to kind of gather data, as you have, Amanda, for us here about exactly what happened. Again, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake rattled parts of the Carolinas here in Sparta, North Carolina, the epicenter there, and we felt it all the way down here in Charlotte. Thanks for joining us. That's going to do it for us. I'm Ann Wyatt Little alongside meteorologist Amanda Cox. We hope you have a great day.